This week, all the premiers around Australia and the chief ministers of the various territories got together with the Prime Minister and they handed over your driver's licence. Yes, they've done a deal to hand over the pictures from your driver's licence to the federal government for a national register of faces for facial recognition technology. Now, if you have a passport, federal government already had it. That's about half the country. But, of course, with this comes massive civil liberties issues. We have OLIVIA Rosenman from The Expressionist podcast and NIC HEALEY, who's a technology writer and the breakfast host on 2SER. So what are the civil liberties concerns, NIC HEALEY? I
think this is quite a big deal. And I see Malcolm doing very much that, well, you know, we've got to sacrifice a little bit of liberty here and there in terms of security. I'm not sure how much I agree, and I think there'll be a lot of debate raging about this for a while, except apparently it's a done deal.
What exactly is it that they intend to do with this new registry of faces that they have?
50% of Australians have passports, and hence the federal government has their details through immigration, the Immigration Department, and their passport photos and all those details. But the statistics I found in New South Wales and Victoria, 90% of people have their licence by their mid-30s and 70 to 80% have their licence by their mid-20s. So you're getting almost all of the population there. Of course, that does beg the question, people who are below the age of driving, and we saw that young kid who shot the police officer was only 14. So now the state and territory governments will hand over all those driver's licence details, the photos, and then all the vital details that go with that, and the government will hold those all on a database. Now, that will be a database that is used in facial recognition software in crowded places. So basically, say airports, shopping malls, wherever the government decides that they want to be able to use this data, what happens is, so there's this technology that can scan crowds and identify faces and then get what's called a face print, a facial print. Is that what it's called? Yeah. So then, okay, so the facial print basically works on the distance of your various features from each other.
Yeah, the distance of your eyes from each other and in relation to your nose, which, by the way, is why if you go full face-off a la Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, it will still work anyway. Wow. I have been hosting ABC local radio in Sydney afternoons this last week, and we had some great callers about this, like, what if I get Botox? And it's like, nah, it still works. Yeah. It still works.
Interestingly, the one thing that can really interfere quite significantly with these face prints is big, dark sunglasses. Pretty easy to get. Get them at the chemist, $5.
No.
Yes, yep. Yeah,
really?
So the eyes, the eye position, because a lot of it is sort of done relative to the eyes. You put a big pair of black sunglasses on, apparently it makes it very difficult. Say you, Marc, are walking around a shopping mall and you are a person of interest and your face goes past a CCTV camera that then, you know, and you might be sort of a little bit pitch to the side, but the camera's pretty clever on it, can work it out. And once it's worked out your face print, it then scans that against a database of these driver's license. Do you have a driver's license, Marc?
I do.
Bam, you're there. And then big red lights go off and they can just basically come and arrest you, more or less.
Okay, but I feel like there was a lot of jumps there.
I feel like the government is downplaying that capability a lot. What they're suggesting is it will allow for quicker facial recognition than the 5 to 10 days they already have.
Will you guys come and bail me out, though? That's what I really want.
That is 100%.
Okay.
100%.
Given the track record of Australian government data, should you be concerned?
Yeah, we're absolutely cooked.
Well, is it fair to judge the entire federal government's law enforcement capabilities and anti-terrorism capabilities based on the fact that the ABS don't know what the hell they're doing?
It's not just the ABS. Remember, we had a police officer using the tracking powers that was available to him to track a journalist illegally. We've had some horror shows here. And when questioned about this, the Prime Minister said we can't allow a bit of fear about hacking to interfere with security. That's not an answer.
Has he given any assurances of checks and balances to go with this?
No, whenever he's been asked in the past couple of days, I wrote down his quote because I think it's outrageous. Notional considerations of civil liberties do not trump the very real threat of terror in our country today. Gladys Berejiklian said, sometimes it does mean that all of us have to give up a little bit of our civil liberties. None of the politicians are actually addressing this very real concern. Any database like this, no matter your track record, and let's face it, the government does have a pretty bad one, is really difficult to keep secure, and none of them are addressing it, and I think it's outrageous.
And of course, then we're not even factoring in scope creep, which we saw was metadata, which was only going to be available to 1 or 2 different agencies and services, and then suddenly they were like, if you need it, let us know, and then we saw that document talking a couple of years ago now, where Greyhound Racing Victoria was applying to get access to people's metadata.
What on earth would they have done with that?
No one knows. I think they were just shooting for the moon, hoping for the best.
Yeah, right. That is such a strange thing. I guess the other element to this is that increasingly facial technology is going to become a more important part of commercial services as well. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the brand new iPhone. The iPhone, you can log on with your face as well using very similar technology. So if I'm okay with Apple having a register of my face, do I have any right to complain about the federal government having it?
It's always opt-in versus opt-out, though. You chose to do that with Apple. You
and
have no
arguably,
choice here.
Apple has a better track record of keeping secure. Well, I mean, come on, Apple stands up to. I mean, they have a policy of encrypting things to start with, which is better than our government doesn't even seem to understand what encryption actually is.
Okay, well, I think it's fair to say that that data is probably going to be held in some degree of a secure context.
Yeah. But I agree completely with Nick. I mean, it's about opting in versus like society-wide surveillance, which is kind of what it is. And yes, you've chosen to give your face print to Apple, but you haven't chosen to put it into a federal database that means you potentially can be identified wherever you go, whenever you go, anywhere.
All right, there is more of this in the podcast. So download this show. It is available right now on whichever podcast app you choose. Also, ABC Listen. We'll see you there.